I would like to talk about decision making and influence on the early childhood experience on our today's decision making. We are usually not aware in our society that we have so strong connection between what we are doing today and how we are functioning today, and the early child experience which we don't remember, because there's a part of the period when we don't have memories. But when I say memories, we have to understand that we have two kinds of memories, and we don't have explicit memories because this part of brain, hippocampus, still is not in full function. But there is another kind of memory which is implicit memory, which is deeply inside, which is, we can say, in our body, and this kind of memory is possible to reach. And I would like to talk also from my personal experience, because daily I work as a therapist with adult people, and I can clearly see that those experiences what they had, which they had in early life, influence on this how they function today, which kind of decision they are making, how they works, and let's somehow light up this period. So the topic will be influence of fetal experience. I would like to be more concentrated on this part. Fetal experience on the brain construction and the decision making to the lifespan. And let's make connection, stronger connection between these two parts. We prefer to believe that our decisions are results of our rational thinking. Are we agree about this? Is it logical? Of course. But there is a big but. The fact is that we twirl in our mind possible rational solutions and ideas until we feel inside that we have found one that match our positive emotions. Then when we feel that this is it, then we had ground for making decisions. Do you know this feeling when we decide to do something? Sometimes we decide to do something, but later we said, oh my God, I felt it was wrong. But I felt immediately that it was wrong. Those are moments when when we didn't establish connection between this emotional part, which is deeply inside, and our rational thinking. Usually this deeper emotional part, this is much stronger brain than our emotional brain. As maybe you don't know that this emotional brain, I'm talking about mostly about limbic structure, processing 4 billion beats per second. Do you know maybe how many beats per second processing our intellectual brain? Just 2,000. Just 2,000 beats per second, which is enormous difference. All this processing is happening without our conscious. And this emotions or these informations, concentrated informations coming to us as a feeling, and then when we catch this feeling, we know what we want to do. But we are different. We can see that in the same situations, different people under same circumstances and also with same informations have different decisions. Why? Sometimes we have to argue with somebody because he don't think what we think, and we have to convince him, and we have really good, reasonable evidence to show him, but he cannot accept. Why? Answer is in what we have deeply inside, in our emotional functioning. And our positive or our emotional functioning depend on our internal emotional state, and also depends of our way of how our brain function. Let's see where all this coming from. Internal emotional state and the way of brain functioning are shaped during the very beginning, during the prenatal period, when we were already in the womb of mother, and also in the first few years, which we, as I said, don't remember. In this period, our brain was extremely modulative and programmable. Later, about 6 years, this will be changed. But in this first period, we were extremely programmable. And what is the purpose of this? It's very simple to understand. Nature wants to prepare new human being, new entity, new person for a new environment. And idea is to receive information about which kind of environment it's outside, in which kind of world I will live. And nature starts to change, to modulate our brain and preparing our brain for this what will be in whole life. I'm talking about adaptation. And as adaptation we can think about intrauterine forming of the appropriate brain, which nature prepares this brain for a dangerous or secure world. In these lectures I would like just to simplify things and to look maybe on two different extreme situations, dangerous world and secure world. It will be easier to understand point. And the other system of adaptation is something which happens through our first years of life. It's a coping mechanism with adversities. When I'm talking about coping mechanism, I'm talking about subconscious psychological adaptations, something which we can call, which we are calling internal working models, procedural memory, something which we are not thinking about this, but this is inside us and deciding and influence strongly in this how we will decide, how we will function on the level of rationality. So, specific way of brain functioning to the lifespan sometimes comes out as a result of adaptation to the external environment during the intrauterine phase. What I think, we know that a child in the womb receive from the mother all nutrition, but also child receiving all informations about outside world. Not to see, child cannot see, but what's happening, the body of the child and the brain of the child receive mother's hormones. If mother is in a dangerous world, if mother has a feeling of insecurity, she will have special emotional state. This same emotional state will be influenced on the baby, and the baby will start to have same feeling as the mother. This is the way which nature's organized to inform baby what will be when baby will be born, and start to preparing baby for such a kind of world. Let's see two different persons and two different experience and two different mothers. For example, let's take person A. Baby with a fearful mother, insecure mother, maybe it's with a hostile husband, maybe in the war situation. This mother has a strong feeling of insecurity and a lot of cortisol inside. Baby feels and sees through mother's hormones that external world is dangerous place. Systems start to develop brain for such a world, which means that amygdala becomes highly active with a lot of arousal. System develops strong reaction, fight, flight. Why this is important? Fight, flight reactions is something which comes from the limbic, but we can say also from the reptilian brain. This reaction gave us power of rage, power of anger in a battle, in a fight with somebody. If we can evoke this power of rage, we are a better fighter. In a dangerous world, it's a big advantage. If peaceful people or peaceful person in the dangerous world, it's not advantage. But something else also is happening. Cortisol limits the development of anterior cingulate cortex. This part of brain is, as you know, very important for a lot of things, but one thing which I like very much and where ACC is in charge, it's possibility to be open-minded, to receive new information, to think, to processing, to accepting new information, but cortisol limits the development of ACC and makes it thinner. All this is happening in this period, and when the child will be born and start to living, the formation of brain, changing is the brain are already happened. This person later will have strong feeling of suspicion, distrust, insecurity, and usually people are not aware of this because this is only one point of view. From my beginning I had this feeling, I have this idea about the world, and I cannot feel the other people how they think or feel about the world. It's my personal feeling inside, and it's only one. One thing is interesting, that this feeling of insecurity make tendency to obey, to organize in the group. Try to imagine a few thousand years, humans when we were in the tribes. If it's dangerous situation, the best way to protect life is to together, to organize in the groups, to start respect the structure, rules, to obey. And we know already, or still we have military, police as a system of this way of functioning. One other thing is typical for this type of the brain, and I said I'm talking about extreme situations, and I'm absolutely aware that with one specific thing we cannot explain human being. As I said before, we had a lot of things which were going to happen in the next first years of the child, which will also influence on the future person and functioning, but this time I just would like to emphasize this specific topic. So another one specific for this person will be rigidity in attitudes. This person will have one opinion, it will be very difficult to change this opinion. This person will be 100% sure and convinced that this is only one thing which is good. So the thicker ACC, smaller ACC means that I won't be ready to receive new information, to change my attitudes. But this is good, this is something which makes this person better adapted for a dangerous world. Try to imagine a fighter, warrior in a middle of the battle without these traits, somebody who will think about, who would like to negotiate, who would like to think, it's already dead. In a dangerous environment, anger handling, complex thinkings, openness make a person weaker and more vulnerable. Unnecessary luxury. Okay, but this is good for the dangerous world. But let's see the person B. Person B is born with a mother who was secure and happy during the pregnancy. Baby feels and sees the world, to the hormonal state of mother, that world is a good place and for development. Systems start to develop to prepare brain for such a type of the world. What does it mean? Amygdala remains normally active. A person will have weaker contact with the rage, with the power of the reptilian brain, with the power of anger. Fight-flight response will be normal. But ACC will be highly developed, which means that this person will have possibility to complex thinking, openness, acceptance of new ideas, fast processing of new ideas, and making new decisions appropriate for a new situation. This person will see the world as a secure place, other as a not dangerous, until he or she will not see that something is different and that people are really dangerous. So it's not stupid, but just there is a lot of confidence in the world around. Let's see two different brains, how they look like. With a peaceful mother, we said we have normal size of amygdala, thicker ACC, better developed insula. Insula is something which gives us empathy. There's a lot of concentration of mirroring neurons, which give us possibility to feel how the other feels. Without that, we don't have a problem to torture the other people because we don't feel what they feel. This person will have weaker fight-flight response and lower H power, but fearful mother will born different child with a better contact with anger, strong fight-flight response, poorly developed insula, it's this part of brain, thinner ACC, and bigger and more sensitive amygdalas. Amygdalas, as you know, they are giving us, they are evoking fear in our system, and they are aroused. They are aroused for the whole life. And it changes internal state of this person. So we have a sequence now from the fetal experience, which will influence on the brain construction, which will change internal state of the future person, which will influence on the impressions of the world, and on the end, all this will change decision, will influence strongly on the decision making of the future person. How this looks like in the person A? You say, amygdala is highly active, fear, 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 dangerous, dangerous, dangerous. This person inside feels that world is not good, it's a little bit dangerous, I don't have confidence, enemies, if I'm in conflict with somebody, I feel that he hates me, he don't like me. I must attack to defend myself, it's the best solution. One thing is important to understand that this fear, what I'm talking about, mostly, especially men, will not feel the fear. What will feel is the rage, is the anger. I'm not in contact with my fear, because system works on this way. Fear evokes anger. I feel it's a second emotion, anger. And also, this person will have idea that I am right, I have a right, others are blind, you don't understand, I know what is true, and my opinion is the only solution. And this person will have in some kind of conflict idea that I have attack first. There is no negotiation, there is no openness to accept what do you think, why you are so. No, just let's attack. Internal state of the person B will be different because of bigger ACC and normal amygdalas. This person will think about, I want to understand others, why we are in conflict, why you telling me this, why you hate me, I would like to understand how are you functioning. I want to avoid the conflict. Let's talk, let's see how to resolve this. I'm open to hear different opinions. And this person will process every new information and in a seconds changing ideas and attitudes, receiving new information and make new adaptation for a new situation. It's a big advantage. This person is more in reality because it's equipped with equipment to change attitudes, because very quickly I can receive information, processing and changing my attitude. Actually, it's advantage. Maybe in the middle of battle, when you are a warrior, it's not advantage. But maybe when you are somebody else in other situations, it's something which is mature, which is advanced, which is something which is, let's say, more developed. This person will feel focused on the problem, but not overwhelmed with the fear and rage, because the contact with the reptilian brain is not so strong. And for example, I would like to show some situation which everybody of us very well know. is a story about Cuban missile crisis. You remember Kennedy and missiles, Russian missiles on Cuba when the world was on the edge of the nuclear war. You remember this period, 13 days, which was, we were absolutely close to total destruction. And also through the history we can find people, generals or famous people who react on this or the other way, these two different ways. And let's make closer what was happening in these 13 days. We had two groups of people in the US government who are in charge to decide what's going to happen, what they will do when they notice that Russians put their missiles. We have John Kennedy, President Kennedy, and Robert McNamara, and also Bob Kennedy. These three persons had one way of functioning, which we'll explain. I will explain. And we have another group of people, Joint Chief of Staff, generals, admirals, the main people in the army. And one thing is interesting, they had absolutely opposite ideas how to deal with this situation. Joint Chief of Staff very clearly has a very strong impulse to attack. Those citates from journals that Joint Chiefs of Staff anonymously agreed that a full-scale attack and invasion on Cuba was the only solution. And they made big pressure on President Kennedy. We have to attack. You are dangerous for us, because if we will lose another one day, they will kill us. We have to attack them. Joint Chief of Staff also strongly believed that these missiles on the Cuba would seriously alter the military balance, because they felt that something very wrong, very dangerous is happening. McNamara said this is not true, because we have already so many missiles that this doesn't change anything. And they suggesting all the time we have to attack. And they also tried to provoke incidents to have reason to attack Cuba. But what was happening in the heads of JFK and Robert McNamara? They wanted to know what Russians want with this, how to avoid catastrophe. They were daily or every hour receiving new information what was happening, and changing ideas how to deal with this situation, changing and make it more appropriate for the new situation. They were open for different suggestions. They talk with their Joint Chiefs of Staff, they listen them, they accept what they said, but they didn't decide to obey what they want. And they were also very focused, but not overwhelmed with fear and rage. And until the last moment, they wanted to negotiate and looking for a solution, and they said attack is the last solution. And thanks to them, today we have peaceful, we are not in the war, we are not after nuclear war, and we can see through this functioning that really those are two types of brain. And it's very interesting to see through the history that when the people with such a kind of functioning, brave functioning, when they had power on the states, it was period of crisis, period of terror, period of fear, because they have internal state of fear and anger. That's why our world is organized that politicians has a last word and generals has to work to do what politicians say. But also those guys are excellent if we are in the war situation, if we have to fight, they're better, they're more ready for this kind of situations. And for the end, I would like to emphasize one thing. We have parts of brain which develop our society, our civilization, and they are making us more and more developed. Those parts of brain, I'm talking about prefrontal cortex including also ACC, are evolutionary, younger and very young, more complex parts of the brain. They gave us ability for development, for growth, for evolution. They gave us possibility for consciousness, to have a strong intellect, awareness, planning. But those parts of brains demand special conditions for integral development. Those parts of brain must be carefully cherished through the good experience in the early childhood, because they are very vulnerable, very sensitive on the toxic stress in the period of early child development, and normal good natural parenting is something which those parts of brain need. But try to imagine, in our history we had 1,000 of years of the war, and every time when we had some period without war, we have renaissance, we have development, not just because we start with the war. It's also because we start to have new generation of people, new types of brain, which are more developed, more adaptive, more advanced, but it's very logical. For a dangerous situation, for a war situation, we have this kind of war, this kind of brain, and nature prepares us for this. It's a good plan. But when there is no war, there is no dangerous and fear, let's develop. Let's continue with the development of the human race. And for the conclusion, I would like to say that our attitudes and decisions which we are making, today we are talking about decision making, but let's understand that our decision making or decisions represent rationalizations and cognitive expressions of our internal state. This is something which usually we don't think so. We think that everything is just our rational. But our rationality has to be based, grounded in our internal emotional state. But the greatest factor of influence on our internal emotional state is experience in our early childhood. Why? Our decisions depend on how we feel. I think it's obvious. And it's important to see that we feel inside today how we felt during the early childhood period, when our implicit memory, when our brain was so extremely modulative, so soft, and plan of the nature was to learn how word works, and to prepare a new child for this type of work. All those things I can confirm from my personal experience, because as a therapist, as I said, I'm working with people, and I can really see what was happening in their life. Through the simple techniques like regression, we can go deeply in the implicit memory, in the period of the baby, sometimes in the period of the prenatal period, mostly in the first, second or third year. And one thing is interesting, why I have today's problem and functioning and suffer or depression or something or some emotional pain has a strong connection and a strong correlation with this how I felt when I was young. So very, very young. And also it's very logical and possible, I would say, change our internal emotional state. Through the good therapy, we can really change our implicit memory, evoke what was happening, clear damage, clear situation which was painful for us, and change our today's attitude. And all this will influence on today's decisions which we are making in our adulthood. Okay. What I am working is trying to organize, to help today's people, today's parents, to understand what is happening with the baby and the child, and what are these optimal conditions for the child's integral child's development. I'm talking about psychological, social, intellectual, development, psychological development, no, not physical, let's say, all those things which are in connection with the brain. And we have a center in the Zagreb, and we are working through the lectures and the workshops, mostly with the parents, but not only parents. There is a lot of people who are not parents, but they want to understand themselves why I'm functioning like this, why I'm unhappy, or why I can. And always we found that reason or source or roots are in the early childhood experience. And those knowledge are coming from the neuroscience, from the developmental psychology, clinical psychology, and I'm one who integrate all this knowledge and experience and making something which is easy to normal people to understand, to accept, to change, and to implement in the daily life with the kids, with children.